quarter. Now look what it has done. Automatically it has gone through, it has analyzed all this thing. And then it has annotated also saying where it is coming from. And then it goes on to give me a narration of this. And then it does a performance analysis. It gives me a conclusion of that. So I was not happy with this. So I asked it that, could you please qualify the performance analysis with numbers? Because it is talking about, Apple has maintained robust sales and so in many words, people would say Gyan baat raha hai. So instead of that, I asked it, can you give me qualify these with numbers? It rewrites the whole narration, and this is within seconds. And it tells me what is its analysis, and then it gives me a conclusion. So on profitability, it tells me what is the increase in net income, and it tells me, uses words like liabilities management and stuff like that. A slight decrease in total liabilities suggests that effective liabilities management. Now, one thing we have to note is that this might not be always correct, but we will come to that. So then it gives me a conclusion saying what is its conclusion on the quarterly result of Apple. So this is just one of the activities I just wanted to show you. We will discuss on that a bit more detail, because our goal is not to learn ChatGPT, but to tell how it would influence your job, and therefore what you should be doing even after you have gotten your job, and what kind of jobs you should be looking for and how you should be prepared for that. Second, I made it prepare a trial balance. Now, I like playing around with things and trying to fiddle around and see if things break or something like that. So I made a TB. I called a spreadsheet like this. I called it tb.xlsx. And what I did is that, I think this is the one that I prepared. What I did is that I didn't include this column. I didn't include this column. And I just uploaded this document, this part only. This was not there in that original file that I uploaded. So I said that, can you please prepare a trial balance from the attached Excel file? It looks at it and says that, it has description and amount. And it says that, however, the data doesn't specify the nature of each account, whether it's an asset, liability, etc., which is essential for determining. So it is behaving like a human being. And says that, could you please provide me additional information on the classification of each item? In that sense. So, and what is happening is that this is all done using code. And if you click here, you can see what is happening behind it. It is writing its own code, and then it is trying to figure out what is the analysis that it has to do. So then I say that, okay, I upload the one with the transaction type. I've put type there, and I've just put some things. Obviously, some of these things are completely wrong. The classification is not correct. So I have made a wrong classification. Some are correct, some are wrong. I have made this and then uploaded it. I hope everybody can see this files that are there that I'm showing you. Okay. Now I upload this, and it says that, in the type column, and it starts preparing a trial balance. What it does is that it automatically prepares all these things, and then it figures out that it doesn't balance. Obviously, it won't balance because I have given some of the entries as wrong entries. Okay. And it figures out that, please note that in a balanced trial balance, the total debit and credit should be equal. The difference here suggests that there might be an error in the classification of the accounts or in the amounts. So this is not a simple program or some error message that it is coming. It is conversational. You can ask things to it, and then it maintains the context also. Like you might have used it, but I just wanted to show you what all are possible. So then I say that, can you please check? And it says that you may need to correct. So it says that, can you give me the correct? There might be differences in the error in classifications. You might need to review the entries. I'm very lazy, and I said that, can you please check and tell me which are the entries that could be wrongly classified? Then it starts classifying the entries, and it does its work there in classifying the entries. And so I say that reclassifying these entries appropriately might bring the trial balance closer to the balance. Would you like me to make adjustments and recalculate? I said, yes, please. While you do so, please add a note in the next column stating that you have reclassified the particular entry and generate an XLSX for the TB. Now, look at the way I'm communicating. I have not told it that TB stands for trial balance. It has figured it out. I have reclassified the entries. It has reclassified all these entries, but there is still a difference here. When it says that I have saved this trial balance in an XLSX file, you can download it using the following link. So I just need to download this XLSX file here. And this is the one that it has given me. Okay, it still doesn't match. There is a problem with it. So I go back and it says that thanks, can you check what are the other errors that are there? So it checks some of these errors and all that. And it, long story short, it verifies everything and then tells me that there are some errors that you might need to do manual review process for identifying and correcting the errors in the TB. Then I said that, look, I went through your Excel file and I said that, why have you classified drawings to equity? Said by drawings, I mean, it's a technical drawings purchased by the company, which forms an asset for the company. Don't you think so? It does a reclass again and it says that now it's happy, it matches. And then it gives me, without asking, it gives me the updated trial balance. So what I wanted to show you here, and this is just one of the examples, and I have also worked on giving it complex scenarios also to this kind of a tool, and asked it really complex questions which involves employee benefits. I've made a case study which involves employee benefits. There are questions on that. It has to do some actuarial valuation and all that. It does it wonderfully well. There might be errors, there are issues, like you saw, I had to prompt it and prod it. But you have to remember one thing, this is just 2 years old. It is not it is a very young tool that is there. It was released in September 2021 and it has come this far. But then all this is fine. What does this mean for us? What it means for us, for you specifically, those of you who are very young and looking forward for a career, my career, I'm moving more into retirement age rather than looking for a new employment. So I don't have that problem. But what you need to think about is that a lot of traditional jobs will cease to exist. And there is always scare that jobs will go away, people will be jobless, they won't be doing anything, they'll be sitting in the beach or somewhere and sipping pineapple juice or pina colada or whatever. No, but there's a small difference that it might not happen in that form. But what we need to do is that, or what we need to understand is that what AI human collaboration can give us. It will give us a few things. One is that it will help us to achieve more with less resources. Now, what happens? Let's take an example. If you have an internal audit team that does typically all internal audit teams, they take a certain target. They take a target saying that we will do 75 audits or 100 audits in a year, and along these areas. Okay. And the number of staff would be 20, 30, 40, 50 or whatever. And this applies, I'm just taking the case of internal audit. It can be for stat audit or any of the other cases also. Now, the thing is that I can take only 75 audits because I have a certain number of staff that I have in my team. What if I had a lot more staff? I could take more audits, right? Now, what this enables, this kind of a technology enables, is that you can take X times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 10 times multiples of audits that can be done with the same staff. So now, instead of having junior auditors, you have these AI tools that can do your junior auditor's role. And the junior auditors need to scale up to become one level above. That is, they need to know how to work with AI. So if you were the lowest person in the hierarchy who had to do all the manual work, good news for you is that you don't have to do that. The challenge for you is that you have to think you are now going to be treated like a grown-up. So you have to be thinking from a higher plane point of view. So which means it shifts the value of our work one step upwards. So what you are doing today as a transactional job, that moves one level up. When that happens, you improve the speed and output of your jobs. If it is audit, the number of audits, the speed at which you can finish the audits, the amount of time that it takes to analyze the data, to create reports, for example. All these are done very fast. And therefore, what happens is that the speed of business also improves, and your response to certain business situations also improve. Now, this is a thing that you can take and take it to any other part of finance and accounting world also, from the examples that I showed you. So this is the world that we are entering into. So that is the context that I wanted to set, that before we ask the question, what do we need to do today? From what do you need to do today? And here I had 4 points that I had mentioned here. That one is that we have to move from just in case learning to just in time learning. So you will not have time to learn. You will not have time to learn. You'll have to learn very, very fast. I'll give you an example of just in case learning model. Just in case learning model is ax square plus bx plus c equal to 0. Root of quadratic equation, you would have studied, right? X equal to what? Minus b plus or minus square root of b square minus 4ac by 2a, right? We have memorized all these things. A plus b the whole square equal to a square plus 2ab plus b square. We don't know why we will use that ever in our life again, but we have learned and memorized these things. Why do we learn that? Because just in case somebody asks us, what is the square root, what is the root of a quadratic equation, you should know. What is a square minus b square? You should immediately be able to say a plus b into a minus b, correct? That's why we have learned all these things. And I can tell you that I have worked for about 25 to 30 years now in the industry. And I can tell you I've never had to use that. Neither of these equations that I've studied, I've never had to use it. So there's a lot of things that we carry in our bag. It is like when you go for a holiday or when you go for a trip, you will carry everything more than what is required. So we do the same thing to our head also. We carry a lot of things in our head. So the idea is to load our memory with so much information that we can, if somebody asks, we'll be able to tell you that, if somebody asks me what the section 80 IA in Income Tax Act stand, then I can immediately say it's for infrastructure projects, correct? So like that, I should know all these things by heart, but that has moved into knowing. So remembering these things have slowly become obsolete, and you know that already. You don't remember the phone number of every friend of yours, right? One or two people you might remember. I know people who don't remember their own phone number also. So memorizing things are going. So what will need to happen is that you will need to understand the concepts faster. And that's why I'll take you to the last part. When I discuss towards the last part, how to face technical interviews, you should be aware of that. Okay. The second part is that we have to get out of this Kunji model. We have a Kunji model in India. Kunji in Hindi means key or chabi or key guide, which is there. No? So for any exam, you have a Kunji and you can pass with that. So if you want to study for JEE, then you go to a particular coaching institute. They will give you these many question papers and you will pass. There is a key for all these things. Same goes for all our exams, right? So that the problem is that we draw lines that this is in syllabus, this is out of syllabus. It has happened to us, right? When we come back, I mean, I've done that many times. I mean, questions came were out of syllabus. It was so annoying. We were upset. How can they ask questions out of syllabus? Correct. The problem is that now, once you start working, everything is in syllabus. There is nothing out of syllabus. So, which means you have to learn everything. And I'll discuss more on that when we come. Third is that reflect on what is the value that you are adding to a transaction. Because if what you are doing was just preparing trial balance, I've shown you that it can be automated completely. If all you are doing was just looking at if you are looking at the financial statements and preparing ratios or summary of the financial statements in a one-page summary of it, that's also automated. It can do that. So you're knowing current asset minus current liability equal to working capital, or whatever your ROCE equal to EBIT by capital employed. Therefore, capital employed is equal to net worth plus what? Net worth plus long-term liability, correct? So you don't have to memorize all these things. So you have, but then what do you do if that is what you've learned? What do? You have to think, where do you add the value? So which means you have to go deeper inside that. Now, unfortunately for you, you are in this part where the direction is changing. So you will feel some of the pain where you will need to know a little bit, but at the same time, you will become obsolete also. This knowing will become obsolete in short time. Doing a quick time check, 5 more minutes. But therefore, how do you add value? You add value by understanding the business you are in. If you are working with an FMCG company, you need to know everything about FMCG company. If you're working in a company that manufactures cereals or soap or shampoo, you need to know how is the shampoo produced, what is the supply chain, how is the shampoo produced, what are the raw materials that go into it, what is the process that go into it, how is it how does it come out of the factory, and after the factory, how does it reach the consumer. Every part of the transaction you should know. Similarly, if it is an IT business, you should know how IT projects work. If you're in technology business, if you're in a company that makes printers, you should know about that area also. Unfortunately, if you're looking for jobs elsewhere also, which you will keep looking, you will need to understand, have a wider perspective of the different technology areas as well. So therefore, the point is that you don't have all that much time also. Therefore, the point is that how quickly can you understand the business you are in and where you want to potentially be in. What are the levers for profitability? What are the revenue opportunities? What are the growth opportunities? How do you optimize your processes? Oops. Hello?
Yes, Narenji.
I don't know. Yeah. Suddenly my
The
screen
screen
went
is
blank.
visible. Yeah, it's there.
Yeah. So this is the thought process I wanted to start with. Oops. Okay. This is the thought process that I want to start with before we go into building your resume. Honestly, building your resume is an easier part because today you have these tools like ChatGPT and Bard, which are available for free, completely for free. There are many other tools that are also available, so that will help you also. But again, go back and say what is the value that you are adding, because you can't rely on ChatGPT to do the interview also for you. So that is not happening anytime soon. Huh? You can't say that ChatGPT will do the interview for me. Anyways, coming to the point. So quick check. We are at 6:30 now. Next, how do we go about building the resume? So I'll take about 15 to 20 minutes at max on this one. First part is a structure, and before I start even talking about the resume essentials, if there are questions, please do put in the chat window. I'll address that as and when we keep on proceeding. From time to time, I'll get in and address those questions that you have on. Just put the questions in the chat window. Okay. So before we get into the structure or what is the content in the resume, you have to treat resume as if it is your white shirt that you are wearing for an important function. You cannot have dirt specks on that, right? It has to be like Nirma or Surf Excel se dhula hua. It has to be sparkling white. So the resume, everything has to be correct. You cannot have mistakes in your resume. Structure, it has to look beautiful. It has to be spaced out correctly, and it should have enough information for people. So that's the first part, is just the hygiene part of it. You don't want to go into a restaurant that looks dirty, right? Or eat from a place which is dirty. You would like to go to a place which is clean. So same thing happens for your resume as well. And also it is a reflection of your mind. So first you start with your name, contact information, phone, email, LinkedIn. Make sure that your phone, whichever you are giving, is working. Email is also working. It is not. These are things that I've seen in the past where people have shared wrong phone numbers. Okay. And email, when they write, they might make a mistake in the name of the email address, which can be, instead of gmail.com, they might give something else, and then it becomes a problem. So make sure that this is correct. It's a reflection of yourself, so it has to be as smart as possible. A brief professional summary. What is it that you have done? Then comes the educational qualification. Then your articleship experience. If you have more than one firms where you've done articleship or you've done articleship and an industrial training, mention that clearly in this order. Skills and certification, and thereafter additional sections which are there. Now, why do we want to put it in this way? Because first is that when I'm looking at the person, the name comes first. I'll be hunting around the resume. If you think of yourself as an interviewer, the first thing you look is, okay, I want to look at the name, and I expect that the name will be on top. And then when you go to the next one, I want to know what is a brief of your professional summary. This is also your 2 moments of sunshine. Now, if it is articulated well, it creates a very good impression. Right? Many of the films that you see, right? It is the starting, when the starting line is very catchy, or it gets you glued to the movie. Same thing happens here. Third again, not in terms of third most important, but very important part is your educational qualifications. What is it that you've done? How much you have scored? What are the groups that you have taken? Just mention a summary of that. Now, this gives a very important view of your academic consistency or how you have done and all that. Articleship experience. In the case of chartered accountants, this is the most critical thing. How you have done, what have you done in your articleship? And we'll come to that with more detail. Skills and certifications, and if you have taken any certifications, and any other awards that you have got or projects that you have taken, voluntary experience and all that comes towards the last. This is a basic structure. Moving on. Oops. Make sure that the formatting is clear. It's laid out, appealing, as in the name should be of a bigger font. There can be a line below that. There are many formats that you can see. My advice is that don't put too much color into the resume, because most people they might, I mean, especially second round interviews and all that, people take printouts of that. Yeah, some people do that. So it's better to have a resume which doesn't have too many distractions. For example, don't put pie charts and all those things in the resume. Some people in LinkedIn might say that, but generally in the finance community, I have seen that people prefer to have a resume which is to the point and what is the matter, rather than distracting things like a bar chart or a pie chart or some graphics inside that. Consistent font size and style. Make sure that all the fonts are the same. For example, if it is Arial, size should be proper, Times New Roman or whatever. All the structure part that I told you about, make sure that the headings are clear and the subheadings are clear. And the content has to be action oriented, which will go to the content section next. Now, each section of your job, this is a pain also, I know. You'll have to tailor it to the target job or the industry that you're getting into. So if you are, as a chartered accountant, you might be applying for, let's say, a audit firm or a company like Wipro Enterprises, which is a FMCG engineering company, or Wipro Limited, which is an IT services company, or it could be a different a pharma company or any of those companies that are there. So just make sure that the sections are tailored to the particular company that you're appearing for, the industry that you're appearing for. Why do we do that? I'm not telling that you should lie or you should dress it in a different manner. The reason is that if I am coming from an FMCG company and reviewing a resume, I would like to have some familiarity with it. Right? So, when earlier Deepak ji asked to put where you are from, I saw there were many people from Ujjain, Bhopal, Indore, Guna, and so on, right? So what happens typically when we see that? If I am from Guna or I know somebody from Guna, this person is from Guna, I know, yeah, there is some familiarity that comes, right? So familiarity is very important for people, human beings. We love to know people from each other. You'll do that, right? When you come to Bangalore or you go somewhere else, let's say you travel abroad and you see somebody from your place, let's say Ujjain or Indore, you would say, where are you from? I am from this place. I am also from that state. Which place, which city in that state? I am from Indore. Oh, you are, I am also from Indore, right? You might have seen those conversations happening sometime. And finally, see, Indore, where are you staying in Indore? Which school did you go to, and all that? Because there are common shared values that you have, right? Indore is one of the cleanest cities in India. So you have certain things that you are proud of, and certain things you might not be proud of, or whatever your shared values are there about that. So something that is there that as an interviewer can relate to. This is why you have to tailor this. Next, quantify achievements with number and data. Without number and data, makes no sense. I came seventh in the race. How many people ran with me? 7 people ran. Not good enough information, right? If 200 people ran and I came seventh, then you would say, okay, not bad, correct? So that numbers give a certain depth to the information that you are providing. Third is something we have to be, as Indians, we have to be careful about, is that using strong action words. We are used to writing in passive voice. If you have forgotten what is active voice and passive voice, go ahead and look into Google and find out, or Chat GPT, or Bard, and figure out what is active voice, passive voice. Action oriented verbs. Action shows that you are enthusiastic. You are not sitting dull like this and you tell me and all that. If you are dull, then people don't want to engage with you. So it has, your words that you use here should have action verbs. Now, in case you're thinking of what does an action verb means, demonstrated capability in ABCD area, or whatever, you can say that this is what I have done. And when you quantify it with number and with an action word, it appears to be much more stronger. Now, in case you're struggling with this, because for most of us, English is not our mother tongue. We don't speak English as our first language, correct? So you can write whatever you want and then ask an AI tool to change it or modify it for you. Once you've done that, proofread very carefully for grammar and spelling mistakes that can come in. Grammatical mistakes are very bad. Spelling mistakes are even worse. Okay, so this is the few basic rules that you have to follow for the content. How do you create a powerful resume? Briefly summarize your skills, experience, and career goals. 1 second. Yeah. Highlight your key strengths and what are relevant to the target job. So what you do here is that when you're typing in this, now whatever is your target job, write a few examples there. What are the key strengths? I have given it towards the later part of the PPT, and I'll share the PPT with Deepak ji. If you can take this, if you think it is worthwhile, I'll be very happy to share the PPT. I'll anyway send it to Deepak. You can take it from him. Okay, so write down what are the examples that will come, which will be your key strengths relevant to the target job. Is it detail orientation? Is it analytical reasoning capability? Ability to go in depth? All those things come in here. What are your key strengths for the target job? Quantify your achievements to grab attention. If you say that streamlined XYZ process saving so many percentage in person hours, or so many, so make it relative and make it quantified stuff, information, and tailor the summary for each job application. You have to do this because it makes a lot of sense to make it relatable to people who are interviewing you. There are 3 questions I see on the chat window. Yeah, I'll come to the questions, the 2 questions there afterwards. So the first question that was put in the chat window is that how do we tailor it? For example, for say, how having done internship in a particular industry, we want to switch to another. How to create a familiarity in the resume with that industry? See, it is not about the change your articleship experience in such a way, but think of it that if, let us say that you have done only tax audit, let us say GST filings and GST, you have helped in GST audit. If that is the case thing that you have done, then when you write it, you put it in such a way that it is, if you are, let's say you are appearing for an IT services company, what kind of issues would they face in a GST? Maybe you should talk about, if it's an IT services industry, most likely it will be an export industry. So zero rated supply, what kind of zero rated supplies have you worked on? LUTs you have done? What are the issues that you have seen in any of the IDT issues that are there? So, you can bring in those elements there. So the point of tailoring is that you really have to think, what is the job that is there that they are offering? What is the work that you have done is related? Because one more thing is that, Laiba, is that, when I'm interviewing for a potential person for my company, na, I know that the person is not ready made. I accept that, because in the campus, I'm coming to the campus to hire people who are not ready made. So that is okay. But what I want to know is that, what are the good things that you have brought with you? What are the strengths that you have? And that is what I'm looking for. And that is what I mean by tailoring also, so that I can understand what you are saying. Okay. So showcasing your articleship experience in the reverse chronological order is how you list your articleship firms, which means the starting with the newest one in the beginning and the oldest one towards the end. The second part is mention specific responsibilities and projects that were handled. Here is again where you can tailor it to the industry that you're talking about. If you have done something, think of it for a moment that if you are coming from a manufacturing company, what would that person be looking for? What would that person's experience be? That finance person who's coming to interview you, what is that person's experience going to be? Most likely that person will ask questions in that regard. So therefore, what is the work that you have done that can take you there? If it is just not possible, no need to forcefully tailor it. But what I'm saying is that most of you would have similar articleship experience. So try to see where it is relatable to the particular industry that's coming from. Quantify results and achievement. Again, as I mentioned earlier, and keywords from job description to demonstrate relevant skills. I'll come to this fourth point later bit when we just close on the resume part. What are the soft skills that are relevant to a CA profession? One is that detail orientation. Mix it with hard skills. What is your area of specialization? Which is the area that you are thorough in? And what are your soft skills that are there? And when you say soft skill like communication or teamwork, communication, people don't expect you to stand up on the stage and speak like a great orator or a great business leader. But what they are looking for is that, give you an example of communication. Can you communicate your point of view in a very short sentence? Can you make that point hard hitting and clear? Can you write audit reports in a clear and concise manner? That is about communication. So when you say communication, you can think of it in that way, not just spoken communication. Teamwork. How do you work together in a team, especially in audit scenarios, so that the end goal is achieved faster by collaborating together? So those are the examples that you have to give in soft skills also. If you have taken any certification or training programs, mention that. But back up your skills with examples from your experience, like the ones I mentioned here. But just keep this in mind. I'll come back to some of these points towards the end. Whatever extra work that you have done, mention that. Your proficiency in additional languages, volunteering activities, any awards or sports achievements or anything that you've got, put it towards the end. When you are mentioning your hobbies, do not put things like surfing the net, watching Netflix, or listening to music and those kind of stuff. Because that is not a hobby. Your hobby can be, watching football is not a hobby, but playing football can be a hobby. So that, see the difference there. So watching football is inactive. You're just sitting there with the remote and clicking and seeing the match, right? Whereas, I'm just putting it in a certain way, but there are people who also do statistical analysis of football matches. I'm not talking about that, but generally, when you mean by listening to music, these are all inactive. But if you play a guitar, it is very different from playing a guitar versus listening to a guitar. So the second part is action. Listening is not a great action. So that is what you need to keep in mind when you do that. Again, just to summarize, tailor your resume for each job application. Use keywords. If it is not possible, leave it at that, but try to see what you can tailor it. Keep it concise, ideally one page. If it's just not possible, go into 2 pages, but people prefer one-page resumes. Proofread carefully before submitting. What you should not do or you should not put in is include irrelevant information or personal details which are not relevant, or making generic statements in the resume. Anything that you cannot stand up to and speak to, or exaggerating your experience, or put in a poorly formatted resume or unprofessional resume. Unprofessional, I mean, which has grammatical mistakes in it, which has spelling mistakes in it, and all that. Now, why would you want to do all these things? That is because you want to prepare for the interview. Now, if you go back to the points that I have mentioned, what this helps you, the structure, think of it from a psychological point of view, what goes on in the mind of a interviewer. It is actually you can actually direct the interviewer in the way you want the questions to be asked if you write the resume properly. Because think of it, if I'm the interviewer, I didn't pass chartered accountancy. So, I mean, typically the person who will be interviewing you would be a chartered accountant. So, but let's say I'm just masquerading as a CA. I passed CA long time back, 25 years, 30 years back. I have no idea. If I take the exam again, I'll definitely will not pass. Most people tell me that. Okay. Now, so what do I want to know from you? I have questions. I am expert in my area. I have seen many transactions that I have gone through, but I am not thorough with your syllabus. Therefore, and you have a syllabus that is whole. I can ask you questions from anywhere. You might have left a particular section as an particular standard as an option. You might have kept it as an optional thing. So, but I can ask you questions on that. So how do you defend yourself is by putting the resume in such a way where you describe the formatting with the clear heading and subheadings, concise action oriented content, and also guiding it in the right way. Therefore, when you write your articleship summary here, or you mention your key strengths and all that, and you bold it and you make your achievements, what happens is that my eyes are drawn towards that area, and then I will ask you questions on that. So it is in some way manipulating the interviewer to ask you questions that you are comfortable with in answering, or the area that you are comfortable with. So if you say that financial reporting is your strength, try to bring it out in that way so that people can ask you your articleship experience, whichever part you have handled. Once you bring it out in the way that bring it out in the way that you talk about the area that you are confident in answering questions. Now, what happens is that when I see your resume, I look at these highlighted points that are there. I read your resume, look at your articles. Okay, can you tell me about maybe auditing standards? I can quiz you on auditing standards. If you have had all experiences in audit, if you have experiences in indirect taxes, then I can quiz you on that particular topic. Correct. So this is the way the mindset of the interviewer works while interviewing, and this is how you can guide the person, the interviewer, to ask the questions that in an area that you are comfortable with. Therefore, writing your resume in this order is of paramount importance for preparing your interview, for the interview. Okay, I'll just look at the questions. Chirag, one problem in speaking in English. It is a difficult one to judge here, because it depends. It limits the companies that you can apply to. So in an interview, you will be expected to speak in English, not in Hindi or any other vernacular language. You will be expected to do that. That is the unfortunate truth here. But what I have seen is that I have seen in the past candidates who are not speaking Queen's English, but were confident and had a conviction and they had the content, they have been selected. I have seen at least 2 or 3 candidates who have got selected. I mean, in my experience, I've who were finding it very difficult to speak English. But this girl still spoke, huh? She spoke and she said that no, I will speak in English in the interview. And she said why she could not speak. And she explained that. And the interviewers were so impressed with her and said that no, I want this girl in the team. And she's still working in Wipro for us. And she's done remarkably well after coming there. So it is that also, huh? Nobody expects you to speak flawless English, but give it your best shot. The good news is that you still have time. The interview is still at least 2 to 3 months away from now, 2 months away from now. So you have time for that, Chirag. So please do prepare like that. You can mention ongoing courses, certification courses, Bhavana, but you should mention how much you have progressed. What is it that where you have reached? Cooking is definitely a hobby that you can mention, but be specific. What do you cook? If you say that you are cooking Maggie or omelette, then it becomes or toast. Then it is you know that it is not you can't classify it as cooking. But if you can cook something which is a specific cuisine, let us say from let's say a particular Maharashtrian cuisine or something like that, then it is interesting. What kind of cooking, or if it is baking, for example, also qualify it. Let it not be a very plain, simple thing. As don't make it. Don't make it like this. Dil hai chota sa, choti si asha. The song, na. Put some jazz into it also. What exactly you are cooking, huh? What you are specializing in. Yeah. Is it relevant to mention these usual hobbies? Like, no, definitely you should mention that. And I have had people also, because it gives a certain impression about the person. Because I'll tell you again, what we are looking for is not just people who are expert in accounting. We want people who can mold and change themselves and adapt to the business situation that we are in. And therefore, anything other than curricular activities also that you bring in is definitely appreciated. But at the same time, it cannot be at the cost of your technical expertise. I'm not sure of the full form Bhavna of ATS. Uh, I'm not sure. I'm so sorry for.
No, then it's applicant tracking system. The ATS
Okay,
software.
okay, 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 okay.
People have
So
started using this lingo to market themselves on LinkedIn, saying that we will help you prepare ATS friendly resumes. So that's what.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, some companies do that. They have an automated system for tracking, and it became a bit of a controversy also because of the biases that it had generated also. Because what it used to do was that it used to track based on a certain type of, it would profile the candidate and then say that this candidate is more suitable for this job. It bombed on people, on the particular company that pioneered it. It bombed on them big time, and they had to pull it back. So while the ATS is still, while the application tracking system is still used, what I talked about is still ATS friendly in that way. It is still ATS friendly if you are able to bring the whatever your strengths are, whatever the areas that you are confident in answering. If you highlight that properly, then it automatically becomes friendly from that point of view. But profiling of these using artificial intelligence tools that were there available in the market few years back, that has not worked out really well. But new tools are there which do that. Yeah. So I would suggest that the strength of your CV is your strength demonstrated in your CV. Is it allowed to ask who will take our interview so that we can? No, Priya, you cannot ask. You will not know also who will take your interview. We can You can ask the name of the person, or you can ask them what is there, but towards the end, because you are being interviewed, you are not interviewing them. When they give you an opportunity to ask questions, you can definitely ask those questions, what they are doing, who are they, what is their role, and all that. And that shows curiosity also. But there's a fine line. Don't be very careful on how you frame the questions and ask also, huh? We worked in an org, and from that org, if we didn't receive a relieving letter from them, then the experience should be ignored. See, there are two things. One is that relieving letter, many companies, what they do is that they do the background verification based on your relieving letter as well as your pay slips. So these two things are important. In absence of payslip, they might ask you for your bank account statements also, because many different companies work in different way. But relieving letter, if you don't have, if you can substantiate, the problem is if you can substantiate that you actually work there, this is the work that you did, and this is the remuneration you got, you can have a discussion with the HR. So it is not at the resume stage you can tell that, because you are not lying in that case. So it has happened in the past where the person didn't have a relieving letter, but the person could substantiate with payslips and the bank statements, and the candidate was accepted. I've completed
Sir,
article. Yeah,
hello. So
yeah.
just one query, sir. I want to know the actual selection process that a company follows, sir. Because for a single job application, we might receive thousands of application. How the actual selection of a particular
I'll come to
candidate
that.
will be?
I'll come to that. I'll come to that towards the end. I'll just come to that when we
Okay,
talk
sir.
about
Thank
interview. I complete articles from different domain and go for job for completely different domain. And how can the articleship experience, which is required for such a job? Let me take a step back and say what is the articleship experience? What is the value of the articleship experience in a company? Like it could be any of the companies that are there. See, whether you did tax returns filing in your articleship or you did statutory audit, it doesn't matter really, because you are starting from the beginning line now. So therefore, it doesn't really matter so much in terms of what is the articleship experience you have had in the past. It will give you some familiarity. So does that mean that articleship experience is irrelevant? Absolutely not. On the converse, what it does is that it brings in a certain rigor and detail orientation that an ordinary college graduate doesn't have. So, and I've seen that in my team where I had both chartered accountants and BCom graduates and who came from college and all that. So, the detail orientation, the rigor with which a person would go through a particular job, the patience level is all built in during the articleship experience, and that is what is valued in the organization. Which is why many companies would not accept you if you have a article if you have done a dummy articleship. If they find out, they will not take you at all for that, because it is valued because of this. You have worked in a certain setup, you know what it means to do a certain activity on time, deliver on time, and you have some amount of practical experience. Now, will you be doing, but if you, let us say that if the same experience is what you are going to continue doing all throughout, it will not be the case. Let us say that you are specializing in a particular domain. Let's say you're doing specializing in direct taxes. Now, for the first few years, you might be doing that, direct taxes. But then you realize that suddenly direct taxes is not just India tax, it can be cross border taxation. The moment you talk about cross-border taxation, it can go into BEPS or the UN model or US taxation rules that are there, which are very, very different. Then you have to understand treaties. So your experience itself will keep on shifting. You will need to keep on learning and unlearning and relearning all the time. So therefore, your articleship experience is a starting point. It is just a booster pack that you get to get you started and get it. It's like a warm-up exercise that you do before getting into the main race. So that is why it is very relevant. I mean, we value it a lot. At least in Wipro, we value articleship experience a lot. And I'm sure in other companies also, a few other companies that I work. Absolutely, Nikhil. Solving a Rubik's cube blindfolded is impressive and definitely impressive. I had a friend, a person in my team who was a chartered accountant and now he's an expert programmer as well. He teaches Python programming to chartered accountants in different companies. He was also an expert in solving Rubik's cube. So when you mentioned Rubik's cube, I remember Mohit. Uh, Sneha, I would not say reading a newspaper can be a hobby. Reading a newspaper is expected. for you to be. So why do you read a newspaper? Reading a newspaper gives you two things. One is that you read and you improve your vocabulary, you improve your English or your Hindi or whatever language that you are reading the newspaper in. Second is that it makes you more aware of current affairs. That is why you read the newspaper, right? So I would not say reading the newspaper. Current affairs would be a better way to mention that, and say what area in current affairs, because newspaper has different columns. Newspaper can have columns which can have editorials, which is an opinion, which is a written opinion. So it could be, at some point in time you might want to write that. It could have comic strip also columns, or sports column. It has politics, it has technology, all those things, right? So which is the area that you're talking about? So that is how I would put, if I were to take a newspaper, I am a avid reader of newspapers. Uh, Zainab, typically people won't tell you what is the feedback at the interview, and some people might tell you, but it really depends on the interviewer, because some people might hesitate to tell you that what is the to give you an honest feedback, but some people might. So there is no harm in asking for it. But internally, you will know, huh? The first question that you are asked, and how you take off, and how many times you have said I don't know, and when you are getting into a soup, you would know. And at some point in time, there will be a tipping point where the battle is lost or won. So you would know already the feedback of the interview towards the end. Towards the end, you will have some intuitively, you will know that. But no harm in asking that. Again, I would say that depending upon the interviewer, or the how the interview goes, you might want to ask the feedback, because these are all human beings that we're talking about. They don't go by set rules that are there. Right? There is a discussion, Bhavna, on the name of organizations. Uh, Ideally, I wouldn't put it, because the companies that you audited, you can avoid that by, see, I would say that, in fact, this question came about a year and a half back, if I'm not mistaken, when we were discussing this, and Deepak sir and I had a conversation on this. So I would say that, to err on the right side, you say that a large steel rolling mill or something, qualified in that manner, so that it is not, people don't take offense to that. So it is better to do that, and some amount of client confidentiality is also maintained.
Sir, I would just like to add, and I also recall this conversation which we had earlier.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like what happens is when you say a private limited company, but unless you give some numbers, a private limited company may have a turnover of
Correct.
5,000 crores also. So some number or something should be tempting enough for the interviewer to ask that what you did in this company. And I also checked at my end also with certain senior members in the profession. They said mentioning the name of the company is not a problem. It's not a breach of confidentiality. But the problem is if you start giving those intricate details of the
Right.
people involved and the company, what went wrong, then it becomes a ethics issue. So mentioning I worked for ABC Limited is fine. Let's say, for example, if I worked for Unilever, so it would be good for me to mention that worked with the control assurance division of Unilever's. So then the interviewer may come back and ask, what did you do in this? So that's a tempting point to bring them, but not to divulge all the financial details.
Correct, correct. In fact, this happened once in one of the interviews, where there was this girl we were interviewing. She was working with a particular bank, and they had gotten into a issue with another company, a very well-known company. And unfortunately, in the interview, she divulged certain information, and HR took an objection to that, because there were some cases being filed, or bankruptcy being filed, and all that. So there were some issues that came out. So so that, again, like you said, it is better to give some indicative things, but keep a, I mean, make sure that your ethics are in place, so that you don't divulge anything which is not publicly available information. Okay. Siddhi, you mentioned that you don't have a rich article. It is not out of context, because many people don't have a rich articleship experience, huh? But at least they think they don't have a rich articleship experience. So what I would suggest is that depending upon the particular experience that you have had in articleship. So I'll give you one example. I have one of my team members who joined my team long time back in 2013, I think, 2012, I think. Fantastic guy. Uh, his articleship experience was very bad. He was actually working like an office boy, going and bringing tea and stuff like that. Poor, I mean, but he did it very diligently. But what happened is that whatever work they did, he did. Whatever work that he did, he explained, he understood the context of it, and he was able to explain it in a detailed manner. I'll give you an example from this is something I have not spoken outside at all. But now it is all these things are behind me, so I can speak about it. No, it is not about what you do, it is about how you do it that matters. So I was a pretty senior person in Wipro at one point in time, and we had a meeting with, and we were organizing a conference, finance conference, and we were all supposed to go to a particular place and have that. Now, the problem is that everybody was busy, and somebody had to go and do a recce. Recce is just to go and see and recognize and see the place and give and say whether it is good or bad. Now, what happened is that in that meeting that was there, I was the junior most person in that meeting. And what happened is that I had to go and do the recce visit. My boss was a bit, he didn't like telling me that, you have to go and do that, but eventually it fell on me. But what I did was that when I went and did the recce, what I did is that I prepared a report which was as serious as any of the valuation report that I would have prepared for an acquisition. I put it in that order and the same level of commitment I had shown there. And it was just that, I had to do it like that. That was how I was trained. It was not that I had something. And I said, yeah, I'm anyway going to do it, but when I'm doing it, I'll do a good job. What happened interestingly was that after that, when my boss saw the report, his respect for me went up really high. I didn't expect it, honestly. I didn't do that out of expectation or anything of that sort. But his respect suddenly went up. And that changed so much between the relationship that we had and all that. And he felt really bad. And he said that, I'm really sorry that you had to do that, but this is fantastic. And so even the smallest or the most menial of the job, when you do it in a proper way, with the same level of commitment that you would do the most important job also, that matters a lot. So in that context, I wouldn't agree that your articleship experience is not rich. It is, you can bring that up and you can say how you have done it. So it is often in the interview or potentially, because your articleship is just when you're studying still, right? When you come into a company, that's when you start the real job. So when you come into the organization, what matters is how you do things and not what you do exactly. At many times, we have to do certain things are very, very manual. I mean, at whatever level. For example, I have had to stay till 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning just to close books. And by closing books, as in on the system. And it is not something great. It is just that you have to be there. But you have to be diligent. And that is not something that I find to be. I would like to do presentations to senior management more than to my CFO rather than sit and close books. But there are certain things that we do when we do it with commitment that changes things also. And people do notice that. So put it in that context, Siddhi. I hope for others also this makes sense. But irrespective of whatever your articleship experience, you should put whatever courses and certifications that you're doing. It can be something to do with learning digital skills like Excel, Power Query, Power Pivot, Power BI, or any of those tools. And Power BI is for free. You can download the desktop version and start working for free. Ankit, for some of those things, yes, some companies would have an aptitude test also, would have an aptitude test. Wipro does have an aptitude test. So there are 3 sections for Wipro's test. One is aptitude, one is English, and one is finance. So the weightage is typically given to the finance and a slightly lower weightage or pass marks for English and aptitude. That is how we go about doing that in Wipro. Your finance knowledge is of biggest importance. I have a gap between articleship and to interview. I've done part-time work based on a small firm and tuitions and major studies. Normally not, Rajan. I have not seen, unless the gap is like 3-4 years or something like that, it doesn't matter. But even then, it doesn't. For Wipro Limited and Wipro Enterprises, they have some number of attempts criteria. As long as you meet that, it should be fine. And I think Wipro Enterprise is a marks criteria also. So as long as you meet that, it should be fine. Gaps don't matter so much because you're a chartered accountant. Chartered accountant qualification is a postgraduate qualification, so it doesn't matter as much then. Priya, I mentioned this about feedback if you're not selected. Typically, people don't remember because I may be interviewing many people and they might not have the detail for that. But if you want to ask a feedback, it is best to ask during the interview itself. And many times you can have that feedback also. But typically, if what will happen is that you might be interacting with a particular HR team or a finance team that is coordinating the interviews, not really the interviewers. So they might not have all the details of the feedback for individual candidates. For aptitude, it is for Sneha, for aptitude, we have some basic maths and stuff like that is fine. Just reasoning and aptitude. So any of the R.S. Agarwal kind of books or whatever happens in these competitive exams, that should be very basic stuff, should be good enough. See, it is depends on the number of attempts. Depends upon so in Wipro Enterprises, I think it is 2 attempts. In Wipro Limited, it is 3 attempts that they have for clearing. That is something that they have put as a criteria. Some companies don't have that number of attempts as a criteria. So this might be one of the gating things that are there in that. Academic records, the percentage of marks is not important for all companies. For certain companies, it is. For Wipro Enterprises, they have a 55% cutoff in both groups in CA final, both groups put together, and 2 attempts in CA final, both groups put together again. But Wipro Limited, there is no marks cutoff. Wipro Limited has 3 attempts, I think, and no marks cutoff on intermediate or finals or something. So academic records really doesn't matter much because, of course, if you have a rank or something, it will stand out. But that is just a ticket to the game. Once to enter into the game. After that, you are on your own. Then, it will be based on how you are answering the questions and how you are able to get that. For which we will get into the next stage, preparing for the interview. I think I've answered all the questions. If there is anybody who has left out, please put it in the chat window. So preparing for the interview, research the company and a specific job role that you're applying for. What is the job role what is it that you're applying for? Reach out to people through LinkedIn who have been in that company before and all that. Whatever be it, sound always to be confident, optimistic, and enthusiastic. Nobody wants somebody who's how is the way we say in Hindi, thaka hua, na? You need to be enthusiastic and can do kind of an attitude. So this is the beginning part. So here are a few questions that had come in the last sessions that were there. And I thought that I'll just address that. Tell me something about yourself. I don't know if there are YouTube videos that explain this, but I've just thought of some of the examples that I've come across. Laiba, I'll come to your question now. Vamsi, I'll come to your question also. Just give me a minute, I'll come to your question. So, typically, what happens is when you start the interview, many people ask you, tell me something about yourself, or why don't you take me through your resume? Now, this is the best way for you to manipulate the interview in your favor. So, therefore, you have to spend hours preparing for this particular topic. How are you going to start your introduction? And it has to be maximum 1 minute or not more than 1 to 2 minutes at max. If you can make it short, it's good, but with content. So you mention something which is what you have done and what is it that who you are What are your capabilities where you have demonstrated? And again, demonstration is very important. And what are you passionate about? Few things that this is one example that I've given here. There are few examples also that I've otherwise also put. Second is showcasing skills. So, for example, somebody asks that, what kind of certifications or courses can I take? So, if you're taking up a certain course, and this is possible now, within 1 month, you can take all these courses that are there on YouTube for free. You can mention that also, that you have taken study from YouTube for free. That shows enterprise, right? And we are all finance guys, so we don't like spending money. So that's perfectly fine. If you learn from YouTube and you become an expert, that's perfectly fine. What is it that you have done? Specific outcome. And what has been what is it that you've done? What has been the outcome? And what is the results that came quantified? So showcasing your skills in a certain manner. Second can be your wider area of interest. So somebody said that cooking is a hobby, or somebody reading newspaper is a hobby. You can mention that you are keen on current affairs or certain points that you can mention. But just be careful when you say that. You should be able to stand up to it. So therefore, what I would say is that whatever you do here, you write down, you rehearse, and then keep on thinking if you want, you can do. There's a trick that you can do. You can record yourself on the phone or something like that. Now, when you play back your whatever you have recording, whatever your tell me something about yourself answer is, you think like an interviewer and see what kind of questions come in. Write it down. Again, record. Improvise, record. Like that, if you do it in a few times, you will see that your tell me something about yourself or take me through your resume becomes super solid and very strong. You got it. Now keep whatever you have written down, record, listen to it, think what kind of questions should come in, write down what you can improve, do that again in a loop. 3 or 4 times or 5 times or whatever number of times, it becomes very strong. What you can add on to your normal intro is what is your dedication and determination. This is where I'll come back to the point that you mentioned your articleship experience was not rich, but how did you react to that situation? Why is it important? Because in a company, when I'm hiring a person, I might not have always the best gold quality work to give that person. Sometimes that person will need to do manual jobs or menial jobs, or very mundane jobs, not menial jobs, mundane jobs. How does a person react? We would want the person to be with same enthusiasm, right? So therefore, this is again an area where you can show that though was what my articleship experience has been, this is how I approached it, and with a positive note. Everybody likes somebody who is positive. Again, relevance to local business. So few examples that I've given in terms of how you can make it relatable, or what you can make it to, how you can add on to your story and make a good opening remark. Some poor responses are that I am a CA fresher looking for a good job. But the problem with the statement is that there is no information there. I know you are a CA fresher. I know you are looking for a good job. I know you are, but so there is not active engagement that I can see there. Whereas somebody who has some specific things coming in is much more impressive here. The other thing you have to be careful about is being long and rambling. So I graduated from this place with the top score and this did this. So make sure that it is crisp and it is to the point, which has content in it. So similarly, when you're saying that if you went to a college and you did certain activities there, you were a part of a particular club. Instead of putting part of the club, mention what you did in that club, whether it be volunteering or any activity that you did. Be specific. Again, the last part is that my articleship wasn't the best, didn't get much exposure, but I'm a quick learner, willing to work hard. But this quick learner and willing to work hard, there is no doubt about that you have to be. But what I see here is a negativity. And that is a problem for a person who reads that. So remember, nothing prevents you from doing a good job, whatever be the assignment. Pointers, keep it concise, tailor your response to a specific situation, focus on your strength. What I mean by networking event is sometimes you might have a group discussion or some things where you like to introduce yourself in a group. So make sure you tailor your response like that. Focus on what are your strengths and achievements, and use storytelling as a positive language. Our best way to learn storytelling is look at movies. How are stories told in a movie? And there you will see that how you can make your story very short and crisp. And last but not the least is again enthusiasm and desire to act. So these are the few things that I wanted to speak. I'll just take a quick break and go back to the questions which were there. So the number of attempts matter only for the first job. Post that you are on your own. Yeah, exactly. So the number of attempts typically matter only for the first job. After that, nobody cares. How actually is the company shortlist from thousands of job applications? So what they do is that they'll have a certain criteria of entry criteria that will might be there. Like I said, in Wipro Enterprises, there is a 55% marks in or more, or 55% or more in both groups put together, and 2 attempts, up to 2 attempts in CA final. So this is the criteria that they come up with. So they shortlist based on that, and then you appear for a written test. In Wipro Limited, it is 3 attempts, I think. They appear for a written test, and after the written test, based on the scores that you have, you will be shortlisted for the first round of interview or a extempore speech and so on. So it goes through that process. Now, in the entire process, what they follow is that how keen you are on this taking this job. They would want to know how soon can you join when you are selected, or what is the uh, uh, what is the commitment that you show in making sure that this is the place where you want to join. So that is how they evaluate in different places, apart from the technical, of course. We'll come to the technical part. Yeah, absolutely. See, if you have, ideally, you should get a message in some time. Some companies don't do that. If the HR round is cleared and the next round of interview took place, and you don't get a response, you don't have a problem. You should not have a problem asking. At Wipro, they would get back. But sometimes what happens is that there might be a delay in the process. For example, last time what happened was that there was a quarter closure going on. Now, during the quarter closure, interviews were skewed in a certain staggered manner. So therefore, it took time. So people might not respond to you immediately. It might take a couple of days to respond back, or there's a call. But you can expect a response definitely from Wipro. Most companies respond back saying what has been your candidature like. Yeah, you should mention that. If there are any transfers also, it is good to mention which are the firms that you articled in. I think that's what you mean. Okay, finish with the questions here. So, few things on strength and weaknesses is that while talking about your strength, avoid generic statements without quantifying. Hardworking teamwork, problem solving don't mean anything unless you give examples. Mention the examples that come in there. Now, weaknesses, don't invent weaknesses just for the sake of answering the question. Pick up something that you can honestly acknowledge. But what you should do is frame it as a challenge. Say that instead of saying I am bad at, he said this is where I am and this is the journey I have started. Because everybody keeps on improving, right? So put it in that manner. And when you do that, highlight how far you have reached. What are the efforts that you have taken? For example, one person asked that, and I have a problem in English speaking. Mention that. It is a positive thing. That this is what I have done. After my exams, this is what I spent time in, and today I have reached from 0 to maybe 5. But that is infinite improvement, right? 5 minus 0 by 0 is infinite. So huge improvement that has happened. So you mentioned in that manner, what is the effort that you have done, and what is the relevance for the particular job industry also? How will the your working to overcome this weakness will benefit your job? So few examples that I've taken here. One example that I've taken here is a weakness. What you do as a what is the challenge that you are facing and how are you addressing the challenge? What is the progress that you have made and the relevance? And the relevance is that so once you structure it in this manner, no, it becomes impressive. Now, even if you don't speak English, like I said, like Queen's English or in a fluent manner, it's okay. People look for content and people can improve when given the right opportunity. So I'll pause here and I'll just take a quick time check with Deepak sir, and if we can go to the technical questions, answering how to go about what kind of things happen in a technical interview. Yes, yes, Chirag. There is no problem in. I mean, unless you say that I am addicted to heroin, or I mean, which you won't, or I am. I go drunk to my bed every day. It is not a problem, and everybody knows that everybody has their own weaknesses. So it is how you articulate it that matters, and your determination to overcome that. That is what matters. Deepak sir, I just wanted to check, do we have time to go in for the technical questions as well? How to face technical interviews?
Yeah,
It'll take
sir.
about
If
10 to 15 minutes.
I think we can take some few minutes, or because it's already 7:30.
Okay.
So
So
you
I'll
can
just
take few one thing which I think one question is appearing is I don't know the name. Somebody has come with name Samsung. Whether we are required to mention all the firm's name and experience if we have transferred from one firm to another. Yes, because they will try to find out the overall hierarchy and the sequence where you have done your articleship. So you need to mention.
Yeah, I mentioned that, sir. I answered that. We should mention that.
Okay, okay.
So I'll quickly take them through typically what happens in an interview. No? See, um, again, writing your resume is paramount. What content you put in is paramount there. If you are saying capital budgeting is your area of interest, or financial reporting, or SFM is your area of interest, or accounting is your area of interest, you should be thorough in that particular topic. Now, they might also ask you which are the areas that you are comfortable, which standard can I ask you questions on? And they might start with a particular standard, an accounting standard. It could be Ind AS 115 or Ind AS 103 or 109 or whatever. So whichever area that you're talking about, you should be thorough in that. Typically, most people start with capital budgeting or SFM kind of questions, because that is the best way they know how to judge a fresher who's coming in. Now, you have to remember that the first question that you might get might be a very straightforward question. It could be as simple as that: what is it? Can you tell me the difference between IRR and NPV? Which is the better measure to evaluate a project? So what you should do is that instead of jumping into the answer immediately, give the answer and then also qualify it by saying what can be a good way to a good way to value the company, and what are the pitfalls that you might see if you are using IRR. And when you're saying IRR, you know already that maybe you cannot use IRR in an unconventional cash flow. So then they'll ask you, what is an unconventional cash flow? So how do you use NPV? So it goes into a loop and loop and loop. The idea of the interviewer in these kind of scenarios is that how do you ask questions to figure out what is the depth of the candidate's knowledge, not the memorization part. So people will not ask you in a particular, but if you have written that a particular area, or your strength is a particular area, then you should mention that. And sometimes it can be tricky also. Sometimes you can get a tricky question that let's say that how do you calculate CAPM, for example, and you might answer CAPM is calculated by RM minus RF into beta plus whatever. So risk-free rate of return. But then I'll ask you, what is the meaning of risk-free rate of return? RF plus RM minus RF into beta. Then I'll ask you, what is beta? And then go into what is the formula for beta, or how do you calculate beta. So, or you can say, what is risk-free rate of return? So, which one would you take? Would you take the bond yield or bond price? Some of these questions which you might be able to answer in a normal scenario setup, you might get nervous. So my tip to all those people who get nervous is that, have a pencil in hand and a paper in hand, and tell the interviewer that if it's okay, can I have a paper and pencil next to me? Most people will say yes. Otherwise, have something in hand. What it does is that it gives you confidence. Otherwise, when you don't have anything to hold on to, you feel like you are sinking. When you have something to fidget onto, I've seen for many people it works well. Like you can see, I've dropped my pen. So have something in hand so that you can keep on writing, or you don't get your nervousness, a bit of nervousness transferred there. So think of it, and when you are stuck with a question, the way you should go is to write down the details that are there, and then try to break down the question and take time to answer. Now you have to understand also, you have about 20 minutes for the interview. So the key question that people ask is that, when do I say that? How many times can I say I don't know? Is it better to say I don't know when you are facing a technical question, or is it better to make a guess? I would say that don't make a guess, but you use a different technique called extrapolation. What I mean by that is that you say that you can start by saying, I don't want to guess, I'm not guessing on this, but this is how it should be because of this reason. What kind of an example can I give there? Let's say we're talking about, let's say there is you're raising an invoice from a DTA to a GST area. Now, would that be a zero rated supply? If you don't know the answer for that, then this is when you can have a assumption and say that this is why I think this should be the answer. So thereby what you're doing is that you are exposing how your mind works logically instead of memory. Another example I can tell you is that, let us say you have under section 80IA, you can claim benefits for infrastructure projects. So if I ask a question that, under, let's say there is a company, L&T has gotten a project from National Highways Corporation, National Highway Authority of India, to build a certain section of a road and a land over bridge, which is there. So the project cost is around 5 crores or something like that. And they have outsourced the work to a different construction company. So L&T is managing it. They have outsourced the work to a different construction company. Can that construction company claim benefits under 80IA? The outsourced company, let us say ABC Limited, ABC Private Limited is the company that L&T has outsourced. Can that company claim benefits? Now, you may or may not know the answer to that. But then you use your logic. By telling that, you are exposing your logic, and therefore before the interview, prepare how you will structure your logic also. And therefore, again, keeping a cool mind is very important to have in an interview. Go to an interview thinking that you already lost the interview. That's okay. Gives you certain level of confidence. And then go in there. That is why many times, when you have underdogs perform the best, when people don't expect people to perform well, that is how in 1983 we won the World Cup in India. So think of it from that point of view. Now, open-ended questions and close-ended. See, close-ended questions are very straightforward. What is? Can you tell me what is IRR? So that's a very close-ended question. Or what is? How do you calculate cost of equity? Now, open-ended question is that what is your view on inflation in India? For example, what are the view on the rate cuts that will happen, that will create the rate cuts that will be announced? What will it do to the inflation? In spite of the rate increase, the inflation has not eased out. What is the reason for that? No, these are open-ended because they don't have one right answer. So there again, your logic will need to take over from there. So, but the point is that in either of these cases, in a very close-ended question, which is one answer, you have to get the right answer. If you don't get the right answer, then it's like a game that you are playing. Huh? You place the bet, you win or lose. But if you have a doubt, that is when you should extrapolate in a close-ended question. In an open-ended question, anyway, you can have a conversation with your interviewer, but just bear in mind that which is the direction that the interviewer is taking you into. Now, it could be, for example, in IFRS 15, Ind AS 115, they can ask you about a particular transaction, and which might have an embedded, let us say, embedded variable consideration inside it. Will you be able to spot it? So how do you go about doing that? What I would say is that you should write down, go through the different, whichever area that you're writing in your resume. Think of you are interviewing a candidate for that role. Write down as many questions as you want there, and keep trying to answer questions and share between your friends. Soon you'll have a question bank which you can use for. Derivatives are SFM. Definitely people ask derivatives that are there. You can ask questions on derivatives. What are different option trading strategies that you can follow? If you have mentioned that, people will ask you. If you are not comfortable, you can mention that. For example, for a company like Wipro, they'll not insist on you knowing derivatives or option trading strategy. What is straddle, strangle, or how do you say, butterfly option, or whatever butterfly strategy, or different strategies you might not be aware of, but certain logical answers they might expect from you. Okay, so again, one last question that I wanted to ask you is that again, Chirag, about open-ended question. No? Another example of open-ended question can be, I can ask you, what is a cash cycle of a company? Huh? So C2C cycle. So which is your considering your days sales outstanding, DPO, DIO, and all that, days payable outstanding and days inventory outstanding. So if I say that cash to cash cycle for a company is negative, what are your inferences? Now, this is in some way open-ended, but at the same time, there is one correct answer for that, or there are two correct answers for that. Or for example, working capital reduction, is it good or bad? The answer it depends, correct? So then you have to think and answer there. And these are the places where I think at least that many candidates would do better if they have the ability to scribble on a piece of paper. So those are few of the questions that can come in, and similarly other things also to test you in terms of your thinking process. For example, in ROCE, what is the numerator that you will? Why do you use EBIT as a numerator? Why not PAT as a numerator? Why do you use earnings before interest and tax? Then you will know that ROCE includes the loan component also, which is your long-term debt and your equity. Therefore, it has to be interest before interest and tax. It is better to do it like that. So the way to answer such a question will be that there is no hard and fast rule that you have to use EBIT as a numerator for calculating ROCE. That is perfectly fine not to use it also. The reason why you may want to use it is because the interest and tax component is also attributable to your debt part, which is your long-term debt part, which is a part of your denominator, which is your capital employed. So you have to think in those terms and then think an answer. Okay, I think I've taken too much time. I'm really sorry for overstepping my time. As usual, I do that every time. But I hope this session was useful for you. If you have any questions, be happy to explain. Otherwise, we will end here.
So just one question.
Yes, Kunal.
So basically, I have been chasing Wipro. I've been a big fan, and I've been preparing for the interviews of the Wipro. I know that Wipro sometimes start off-campus hiring within 1 or 2 weeks of the exam results.
Yeah.
So I have just two questions. The first one: what is the most important thing you see in a candidate in Wipro?
It's difficult to answer that. So I'll tell you a few things that it's a mix of few things, Kunal. One is and it's difficult to assess during an interview. So what typically most people interview as in me or my colleagues also look for is the uh, how eager the person is in learning and how thorough is the person in the concept that he or she understands. For example, if you have not done transfer pricing at all, nobody expects you to know transfer pricing transactions to that depth. As long as you have an overall knowledge, it's fine. But if you have done, let us say, IDT or GST, you have done, then they expect you to have a certain thoroughness in your area where you have worked in. So that is the first level. So which means that what does it demonstrate? It demonstrates that you are not a person who goes over the top and not a CEO level person. You are somebody who likes to get into detail, likes to understand things and all that. So that is a demonstration of commitment and passion also. So this is what they look at when people say. If I were to say we look for passion and demonstration, it doesn't mean anything. But I just wanted to give you an example of that. Second is, how are you able to show a commitment? What are the demonstrations that you have done in your article shape where you have, and I'm sure you would have done that, where you have chased something and showed tenacity to complete certain task? Because initiatives, all of us start. We start a lot of initiatives, but few of us complete it. The person who is successful is the person who starts the initiative, contains it, sustains it, and completes it also. So that is also something that they look for. So all these things, when I put it together, it looks like enthusiasm, energy, and all that. But if I say that, it wouldn't make sense. But that's why I gave examples. Say, how do we measure that, or how do we assess that? So technical thoroughness in the area that you have worked in, how much of detail oriented, or how much of hard work, or diligence have you put in? Hard work is not the right word. Diligence have you put in to get into the in the work? And the problem is not often that you have not put in. The problem is that you don't bring it out in the resume or in your interview. So just keep that in mind, Kunal. I hope
Okay,
I
sir.
answered the question.
Yes, sir. Yes. And the second one, sir. So since
Yeah.
you have been working in Wipro since last 21 years, so how was your experience? Like uh, being in a company for 21 years, you have given like everything to that. We have seen
I
in our profession.
I'll
We have
keep
seen
it.
in our profession and other professions also that people switch companies more often in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, Kunal, I'll give you a context to that. And this is important also for others who are there on the call as well. See, I am not a chartered accountant. I joined
Mhm.
Wipro as a software engineer, and I spent 22 years there. I joined Wipro as a software engineer. In my role, I was a programmer. I still do coding. I was a hardcore techie. So if you look at, so I have publications in telecom domain and a patent in telecom domain and all that. So I'm a hardcore techie in that sense. Now, for a person like me to get an opportunity to move into sales, into pre-sales, into finance, into talent development, it is, I'm sure there are many, many more people who are, I'm not sure, I know that there were many, many more people who are more capable than I was. But I got that opportunity. And that is something that is what I value a lot about a company like where my experience in Wipro. So much so that, when I was leaving, when I told my boss that I'm planning to leave, he refused to speak to me. My CFO, who was there, he refused to speak to me. He said that, no, no, I'm not listening to you. And then I had to explain to him why I wanted to do that. And I served a long notice period. He asked me to stay on for 1 year. Now, what I get in return is that I have an amazing set of circle of alumni, Wipro alumni. And today, when I'm on my own, running my own consulting firm, I don't have to worry about whether I'll have enough work or not. I left Wipro in 2020. My last working day was 30th, 31st of March. So when COVID started. And you can imagine what would have happened if somebody started a business during that time. But I had no doubt in my mind that if I just made one phone call, I could have got any number of opportunities that I wanted. In Wipro, outside Wipro, also in the extended parts. of the places where my colleagues are. So when you see a company, whether be it Wipro or Unilever or any company, I'm not saying Wipro alone, I'm saying any company. When you stay for long, you build very meaningful relationships. And those relationships is what helps you when you grow up and when you are in a certain place. Say initial 5 years, you will not have a problem with your job. You will get job because there are many opportunities there for chartered accountants and all that. And India is growing. You will have next 5 to 7 years, you will not have any problem at all. The problem starts when you have 8 years, 9 years, 10 years experience, because then you are choosing what job you want to go into. And also the number of jobs are limited there in that area. Now, when you go into 15 years or 20 years, then the number of jobs are even more limited. So there are more candidates and lesser number of jobs available. And that is a time when you need to have a good job and working for a good company, ethical company, all those things in place. And at that time, the time that you have served, the relationships that you have built matters. And that is where, when I joined as a software engineer, people used to change jobs every 6 months or 1 year. As a software engineer, people used to, and that was the heydays of software engineering. Huh? Everybody used to go to the US and all that. Looking back, I don't regret the decision at all. Staying back in Wipro and doing it, and I got amazing opportunity to work with. And in fact, uh, when I left Wipro, and I still take interviews for Wipro, funny, and I interview chartered accountants. My CFO used to say that there is no doubt that I'm not taking interviews there. So he's entrusted me with uh, organizing this whole thing, and I can take interviews for even very senior people who have joined in, and he trusts my decision. He used to, now the current CFO also trusts my decision in that manner. There's a lot of trust that builds in when it is done over a period of time. So I think longevity matters. The thing is that you should be in the right company, and that matters a lot, because that will which has ethics in place, which is not fly by night operators or something like that, and they have a solid cash generation strategy. It is not that they are building castles in air and not. You have to see money, cash coming in. So you should look at those things also while you're selecting a company. I hope, Kunal, I have answered your question also.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, everybody, for the opportunity.
There's one last question. Meet has asked.
Yeah. 2-pager resume have an impact on shortlisting? No, not really. So in Wipro Limited and Wipro Enterprises, what we do is that we give you a template resume, a resume template that you can fill into. You're supposed to fill in and send it in that format. So it becomes easier for the interviewer to see that. But what I'm saying, Meet, is that when you write, make it crisp. Don't go overboard writing too many things. And if you are running into problems, try to see if you can use AI tools or something like that to make it crisper. But don't just copy paste. Read it again. Read it again and then do that. I would say that ideally 1-page resume is the best, because people don't have that much time to go through. You're doing these interviews in series. No, that's why.
Okay, I think we can call it a wrap, Narenji, now. And I must appreciate all the participants also that they have stayed up till the end of the session and tried to hear you out in complete. I hope you all had a good session, my dear future chartered accountants. And I hope we were able to give you those insights which usually are not available across the LinkedIn posts and other social media. On behalf of all these candidates and on behalf of our team also, Narenji, a big, big, big thank you to you that you have given out your time and shared these insights. And I will definitely share these presentations with you with your due permission. And if I wanted to seek your permission also in regard to the fact that I have recorded this session, do you allow me to share this session with the candidates if they want to?
Absolutely, sir. So I'll send you the PPT shortly after this.
No worries.
And you can forward.
Thank you very much, Narenji. Thank you very much. I know these are all kids. They are just budding chartered accountants, but the value of your time, I always appreciate and cherish. And I always learn something while hearing you out. This time it was the ChatGPT thing which you mentioned that it can help you understand at that level. I was also using it but to this extent, I didn't know. So it's more of an insight to me also. Thank you very much for upgrading us on a regular basis.
Sure. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much,
Thank,
everybody.
thank you very much, Narenji. Thank you. Narenji, you can log off and I'll
Sure.
just close the
I'll
session.
log off.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope all the students have got the candidates have got the right guidance which we wanted to give you all, and I hope it is a better session to you. There's one more session which we'll bring up now, which will give you insights on various domains and what are the various opportunities and how do you handle these pre-result things. So please make sure you keep attending these sessions and bring your friends also to these sessions, because we would have expected more students to come. I think it's more of a holiday season now, therefore there were lesser students. But please make sure and share this word with your friends that yes, we all are talking sense here and it's adding value to you. So this will help you all build a better resume, face the interviews in a more better manner. If you have any feedbacks, please share it on the group so that everybody can understand and appreciate that. And thank you very much for being here. I am logging off from the session. Okay. The group is, I think Chirag, you don't have this link of the group. So where did you get this invite from? Yeah, the Telegram group, Degree to Placements. That's the one. The Telegram group and the WhatsApp group which we make for every attempt pass outs. The Telegram group is Degree to Placements. Do you want me to paste the link of the group here? Just give me a minute then. So just give me a minute. I'll share the link. Just give me a minute. See, here is the link of the WhatsApp group which we have. And I'll just share the link of Telegram also. Here is the Telegram link. You can join and share it with your friends also. Okay. Chaliye. Thank you very much. We'll take it up the next session in the New Year's in the first week of January. Thank you very much.